came up with this idea of doing a webinar on teaching and emotions after attending, I think I've attended so far 3 webinars. And what I heard and what a lot of some of the discussions seem to be focusing on resonated quite closely with something which has concerned me for a long time, which is as a teacher trainer. And that is, we talk a lot about materials and management, classroom management, and trying to meet learner needs, trying to meet institutional needs, trying to get through the lesson. But there's something else behind all of this which seemed to go missing, which is precisely to do with emotions. But one thing that was concerning me was how to actually begin this on a really clear note. And then it hit me about 3 days ago. What I remember when I began teaching about 35 years ago was that I was extremely nervous, and the learners that I was facing were quite highly excited. But somehow we couldn't bring the two together. I couldn't get over my nervousness, and the learners couldn't get over their excitement. And what has happened to me over the decades is that the roles seem to be reversed. I now seem to be the person who's highly excited to meet the learners, and the learners themselves seem to be a little bit nervous, maybe a little bit anxious about what might happen and how things might progress. And I noticed that a big aim of mine was putting them at their ease. Not so much the content of the lesson, but more to do with enabling them to feel comfortable enough to engage with whatever we were going to look at. And in the middle of this career of mine, we seem to ignore that kind of emotional impact and focus on all this massive paperwork like materials, programs, tests, criteria, feedback exercises. You have it there. And as a teacher trainer and as teacher trainees and practicing teachers, that seems to be our focus. And the learner, and I put the teacher as a kind of learner as well, we seem to make ourselves immune to the emotional aspect of what we're doing. What is very interesting is that only recently psychology seems to have entered the conversation about education. The psychology of learning, the psychology of learners, the psychology of the teacher. And there has been a move to try to understand how we deal with and work through our emotions, because that seems to have a big effect on the success of whatever it is that we're learning. In this case, it's language, okay. And even more so because it's language, the emotional aspect of the way language is used, the way language is learned, the way language is practiced, the emotional aspect is even something highly critical. So what we're going to look at, and I will be showing you some of the things that I've used to help, that have grown out of my interest in the importance of understanding the emotions of the learner and understanding one's own emotions as a teacher. What I've got here is just a normal document that I just slide down. Okay. So just to start with, what I have discovered is that the most important thing for a teacher is the teacher's confidence, but the confidence doesn't come through knowledge or experience, strangely. It comes through the capacity of the teacher to feel or to be at one with their emotions at every single moment of a lesson. And that might seem a little bit theoretical or a little bit mystical, but actually through the practice of teaching, that's what I've discovered is the main thing that drives me when I'm with the learners, to be ever present. And also to be at one with my own emotions as I work with the learners. And that has a very interesting effect on the learners, that they feel that they can be at one with their own emotions, and it's okay. I mean, just little kinds of examples here. I put here feelings from different tastes, feelings from different textures, feelings from being inside or outside, sharing one's feelings about certain things around you. Now, there's a practical point here which I should outline, and that is a lot of this work that I've been doing and of aspects of teaching that I've been discovering have been in face-to-face. And of course, at the moment, most of our work is online and remote. So I'm not sure, although I've been having some success with the online teaching I've been doing, to what extent one can engage with emotionally with the learners within the language that I'm wanting the learners to learn, but also the language that we're using just to relate to each other, interact with each other. For example, I mean, if a learner is actually drinking something during the lesson, then I would remark on it and say, that seems yummy, or that seems yucky. Is it nice? What's it like? And that's just a very little instance, but it's actually very important because it shows a kind of interaction at a level which the learner can feel, I believe, very comfortable with. The other thing here, I just put down here about feelings and emotions, because I used to get very confused about what's the difference between feelings and emotions, but I read somewhere that emotions, at least at the beginning, are unconscious, and feelings are the kind of physical, conscious embodiment of an emotion. That's what I've learned about the difference between the two, but the two words often get used both together. Okay, so the ability to be at one with one's emotions, whatever these are, at any given moment, seems to me very, very crucial and very important in one's engagement with learners. Okay. Something that's come up, and not just in the webinars that I've attended with with Refugee Ed, but also with a lot of the work that I've been doing with teachers, is frustration. And a teacher can feel frustrated with learners. Learners can feel frustrated with a teacher. But the frustration, the thing about frustration is that it's okay to feel frustrated. But the frustration is inside you. So, for example, if you're doing something which doesn't seem to work so well, you just say, this exercise is really awful. What do you think? Throw it, crumple it up, throw it away. The problem then is for the teacher, especially the newer teachers, is that, oh my God, what am I going to do then? But I'm going to work through this, that how to deal with at each moment, every moment, how to deal with that situation, so that if you throw something away because it doesn't work, it's okay. That's one thing. The other thing is a way of getting round frustration is that very simple, rather ineffectual question, how are you? Now, we often ask, how are you, as a kind of throwaway. How are you? Okay, yeah, fine. Okay, let's get on with stuff. But it's a real question, and it's a question that demands follow-up. So I've got some things which we can look at a little bit later, but related to that question, so that when a teacher asks, how are you? The learner needs to feel that you're really, really, really interested in how they really are. So a learner might say, well, I'm really tired today. Tired. Okay, you look tired. So what's happening? How are things? What's happening? Why are you tired? Or one learner that I've got is constantly telling me, so how are you? Great. She's always saying, great, I'm great. I said, so tell me, why is it so great? What's happened? And that is also a kind of positive way of getting over the frustration bump, as it were. Okay. The other thing I've got here about teacher to learners, I'm sure there are more fascinating things to look at than me. And this is something I'll notice with online work. Because with face-to-face, nobody isn't really all the time looking at the teacher. My God, if they're all the time looking at me, I'm thinking something's going wrong here. In a face-to-face, in an actual learning zone, learners are huddled together, they may be working together, the teacher may be roving around, rotating around. There's a very short amount of time where you might want learners all to have their attention directed to you in a kind of lecture format. And in online, the unfortunate thing about online, one of the unfortunate things, is that you can't seem to get away from this lecture way of looking, a lecture kind of format, because I'm looking at all your, I'm looking at your pictures, and I'm noticing some people looking at the screen, some people looking away, and sometimes some teachers might feel, if you're not looking at me, especially on an online situation, oh my God, I've lost you. Why are they not attending to me? Is there something, a distraction which is taking them away? What can I do? But the thing is that to concentrate, you don't have to look at somebody. And especially in a learning zone, I've got down here, there was a time when Sharon, who's a good colleague of mine, when I was observing one of her lessons, it was about 20 years ago, and it was in the business English school. And it was a one-to-one, so there were three of us packed into this small space. And she asked me afterwards, because I was observing her lesson, said, Sami, why were you sleeping? I said, my eyes were shut, but I was concentrating. I was listening more attentively, but my eyes were shut. He said, Sami, it looked like you were sleeping. But we notice that a learner doesn't always have to look at you. And you don't always have to look at a learner to ensure that there is that concentration, that attention. You must say, if if you have any questions for me, please, just if maybe in a chat you want to throw me a question, please do. Otherwise, I will bumble away, because it's very strange. I'm in my room here, and I'm getting some kind of a sense that I'm with a group of people, but it's kind of ethereal. So I will go rabbiting on until somebody says, Sami, stop, I have a question.
I have a question.
Oh dear, yes.
Can I go?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, so my question is about like showing vulnerability, and like you were saying about you should be honest about how you're feeling with your learners.
Yes.
And I completely understand that, and I think it's really good to show that you are just the same as them. But I wonder if anyone else might have had this experience, especially as in a context where you're maybe teaching as a like young woman or whatever. You might be teaching a class full of older male students or something like that, and then showing vulnerability comes with like a lot of other baggage, do you know what I mean? And sometimes it feels like you need to show that you are in control of the class and that you have authority in order to kind of keep people's attention or just like prove yourself a bit. So I was wondering if anyone else had that kind of experience where like, yeah, you want to show that you're a human and you have emotions, but sometimes the situation means that you also feel like, I'm going to save it till the end of the lesson because I really want to have like respect and authority in this class. I don't know. What do you think?
I've definitely had that experience, especially teaching. For me, it tends to be men who are a similar age to me or like slightly older, which I mean can be a difficult dynamic to sort of navigate anyway. But yeah, in that situation, I find it quite hard to navigate that balance between wanting to like obviously be personable and empathize and allow them to empathize with me, but then also not be so personable that they're like, well, we can just take the piss now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, this is a fear of weakness. This is a fear that you feel that somebody's going to take advantage of you. Sorry?
Sorry, it's outside.
Okay. This is something that I do encounter a lot when a teacher feels there's a certain kind of confrontation here. It's important at the beginning to establish that you want these people, the people who are with you, your learners, to be there with you. In other words, that you are happy that they are there with you. It's not, we feel sometimes that there is an element of power involved here, where the teacher feels the power can sometimes drift away from the teacher and over to the learners, and sometimes the teacher can allow that a little bit, and the teacher needs to bring that back, so that there is a certain degree of authority and there's a certain degree of confidence that the learners have in the teacher being able to lead. That the confidence to lead doesn't, it's there inside your personality. It's not something that is necessarily in your actions. It's something that learners can pick up the moment they set eyes on you. And it's very much to do with the way you respond everything that comes from them to you. And it's a matter of taking just example by example. And sometimes it's a matter of, it seems trite, but a matter of just listening. I think it depends how many examples that you've lived through where you feel that learners are taking the stage away from you and how you respond to that. And how you read the personality of each particular learner. And one thing that I've seen happen where a teacher actually asks a learner to take the lesson for a short time, whether it's a few minutes or a few seconds, so that the learner, or a particular learner, takes central stage. That I've seen happen. I've seen that happen many times. And what I find also, what I notice is that after a certain time, the learner is so happy to pass that responsibility back to the teacher. When you mention that, this cuts to my heart a lot when you say whether you think the learners might take the piss out of the teacher. That's a fear I've often had. Until I realized that that is a fear that's inside me. It's not really something that is actually coming from the learners themselves. It's how I'm reading them. That's sometimes difficult to accept. I can understand that. But it's taken me a long time to realize that I might be, right now, at this moment, speaking to you, responding to your question, I might be wondering, what are the other people in our group thinking about this? Are they really, are the people here mentally taking the piss out of me, thinking, what's Sami on about? But actually, that's only a thought in my head. That's only, and again, being a thought, it's not really useful. I think also, it comes up on a later page in my document, the way to smile with learners. And that again is the way the teacher presents himself or herself to the learners, whatever they are, whether they're a group of teenagers or younger or slightly older adults in the early 20s or really young learners. It's a matter of them seeing that you are very comfortable with who you are and how you are. And what I notice with teachers, it very much comes down to I call it the smile, but that's something that I will elaborate on later. There is a little scenario here, which I think it's a rather neat illustration, because I saw this happen, and an illustration of how something which could become a confrontation, how to reduce that, or how differently to deal with it. And this was just overheard at the reception of the ferry terminal. A couple wanted to take the ferry over to Holland, but were told they had to get a corona test first. The nearest test center was 40 miles away. An employee from the ferry company came to the couple to explain the situation, and when they got upset, he defended his innocence by saying he did not make the rules. And that made the couple even more frustrated. My point here is that how could the employee, and think of the employee as a teacher, avoid that confrontation? And one possible way was simply just to agree with the couple that, yes, this is a daft idea, it's stupid. Why couldn't the ferry terminal have its own testing center at the ferry terminal? In other words, not to feel that their frustration, the frustration of this couple, was aimed at the employee. Simply to look at the frustration in itself, and not to focus it on the people involved, but actually just to agree, yes, it's a crazy idea. It's a nonsense. It's such a hassle, and if I were in your position, I would feel exactly the same. But that kind of confrontation happens a lot in the teaching situation, where a teacher can feel confronted and placed in a kind of vulnerable position of, or a position of being blamed for something. But it is this little thing of agreeing with the learner, yes, this situation, or whatever this is, this sucks, this is dreadful, this is stupid, this is silly. I agree with you. But it's very difficult for a teacher to agree with the frustration of a learner. That's something else I found, and it takes a long time to work with for a young, when I say young, a new teacher, to come round to that, because there is that feeling, I've got to show that I'm in control of the situation, and the situation is okay. The situation possibly is not okay, but it's okay that the situation is not okay. That was my point. I'm going, I spend a long time looking at your question, and I can't see your name. Sorry, tell me what, I can't see your name on the little, who asked me the question.
Name?
Yes.
My name's Lara.
Lara, sorry, Lara, because I couldn't see your name on the little video screen. Okay.
It's okay, don't worry. Thank you for answering it.
That's all right. Okay. Then this is an illustration of exactly the same point of agreeing with the person who's confronting you, who's challenging you. And say, no, that person's making a fair point. And not to show on your face, and this is where the smile comes, to show on your face that, hey, thank you, that's a good point, yes. And yes, again, this embodies a lot of what I'm saying, that being alive at every moment, and being present and letting the choices come from both the learner and the teacher, that it's as important as it is to have materials, to have a very clear plan. Fine, yes, that's very good that you know exactly what aspects of the language you want to teach, you want the learners to learn. to being flexible, to allow choices of how to use and work with those materials coming from the learners. That their choice of how they want to use the materials, how they want to work with the language also comes from them. Yes, I've just put a few ideas there. I said through the materials, to avoid pre-prepared materials. What I mean there is to avoid being fixed by pre-prepared materials. And the second thing, engagement with learners, doing a dance or song routine. Dance routine is a little bit difficult online, but a song routine, why not? That's something which could be so, it brings learners together with the teacher. And through the atmosphere you create in the room, that's very, very typical. This is, I put a very boring idea there, putting up a drawing you or the learner made. Maybe even some calligraphy from the learner. Something I learned from Olivia is that a lot of the refugees and learners are Arabic speakers. Calligraphy is something so important for Arabs, for the Arabic speakers, and that shows, to celebrate something that the learners have done, and you as well. And then festival celebrations, rituals, being aware of things which are important in the lives of the learners. I put down here, nothing ever really goes wrong in the learning space. Nothing ever really does go wrong. It only goes wrong if the teacher has a preconceived or a sense of wanting to maintain a kind of frame or grid of how the lesson should go. Why? Oh, this one. This is a typical mistake I'd made. My early lessons to university students, one student who happened to be extremely smart and quick-witted rolled her eyes heavenward and said something nasty in Chinese directed towards me for doing an exercise from the book, which was too simplistic for her and her classmates. I froze. I carried on with the exercise. What I should have done is just said, yes, the exercise is crap, throw it away. And then, you see, and this is the big point, by that time, I will have got to know what are the various strengths of each learner, what strengths and interests. So maybe for some learners, an exercise like that would be useful. For other learners, we do something else that's engaged with something that they're working on at a particular moment, at that particular moment. Something which concerns them in the language. And that with these university students, their minds are focused on very particular aspects of what they're learning, what they're preparing themselves for. So it's a kind of individualizing what you do with the learners. And this is it. What I was not doing was treating each learner as an individual. I was seeing them just as the group. And this comes up about the importance of smiling. I always laughed at this idea a long time ago. But since learning about and noticing how especially people, this is something that I think is born out of the Far East, or at least in the Asian part of the world. Smiling is actually a neurophysical thing which actually affects the brain. It helps the brain function more efficiently. This sounds daft, but after doing some studies with neuroscience, I realized that, yes, apparently there is something here. Always smiling, and it's sometimes quite difficult because you might not feel like smiling. Even when you feel that a learner is being a little confrontational, smiling is something which is so, I think it's essential. I put down walking downstairs with a smile because I've got a dodgy left leg, and going up and down stairs is difficult. So I force myself to smile. A very good friend of mine that I was living with in Holland, when she was doing yoga, or practicing yoga with me, she said, "Sami, smile, smile, smile. You have to smile yourself through the pain." And I noticed that, and I have noticed that with teaching, the teachers who smile, whatever is going on, they find a way to work their way through any difficulties that might arise in a lesson. Okay. I'm looking at the time. I'm going to pass through this. This is something, all this is to do, the only reason I put this here is that try to avoid thinking through something. The problem with thinking is that inevitably you think of everything that can go wrong. You can think of things which might fall apart. And things that do work and are pleasurable, somehow the thinking falls away and the feelings and the emotions come through when something is successful. But the thinking seems to take over when something might go wrong, or when you think something is going wrong. So when I teach, when I notice that I'm beginning to think about what I'm doing with the learners, that's when something either goes wrong or I have a kind of mental block. But when I stop thinking and I let my feelings and emotions come through my interactions, then all kinds of ideas come up, all kinds of possibilities come up, things that I notice, something that the learner has said, and that's very interesting, and I pick up on that, and that becomes a focus for that part of the lesson. And that, in fact, is something which I've learned from a lot of teacher trainers, not in the East, but in the West. I find that very interesting. Okay, I'm looking at the time. I want to move on. You know, this is much more of the same, and that's really the importance of gifts. Learners are giving us gifts every moment of the lesson. And it's important to be open and uncluttered to be able to pick up these gifts. The problem there is that once you start noticing these gifts from learners, you're spoiled for choice. It's your head, your mind, your soul becomes crowded with all these gifts. And you don't know, my God, which gift am I going to pick up on first? Which learner am I going to focus on first? And it becomes, you say, whoa, I need to calm down. That's the next problem, how to deal with the multiple gifts that are being thrust at you from learners every moment of the lesson. And that's another stage. That's something else which I can't go into now. That's more very much to do with a kind of technique. Okay, this is just the reference to the theory that a lot of the ideas that I've been discussing with you about emotions and feelings come from this affective neuroscientist, Mary Helen Imodino-Young, if at all any of you might be interested in following up some of her work and what she discovered about emotions, the importance of emotions in learning. But that's just the theoretical background. If any of you are interested, that there is a link to Far Eastern philosophy, the Vedas and Upanishads. If at all any of you are interested in, a lot of these ideas also come from these. And it's very much to do with how the teacher works with the multiplicity of different kinds of learners that you're faced with. Out of these 5 contributions come 3 strategies, and this is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty. I'm looking at the time. Okay, all right. Nurture emotional connections with the materials. Now, this is something I've done a lot with learners in Malaysia, as well as in China. And it's, I call them sort of word bubbles or word shapes. Chalkboards are best. Again, how to do this online, you need to pre-prepare these word shapes, because unless you've got some kind of a tablet where you can draw using your finger on the screen, I suggest you prepare these beforehand. But the idea is that each word has its own shape. Hang on a second. And what I would do is, the word goes up there, I draw the shape, and then later on in the lesson, I wipe away the word. And at the end of the lesson, I point to the shape, and the learners inevitably, the learners can chant and respond exactly with the word that was in that word shape. This excites a certain part of the brain, which is the part of the brain which is where the emotions are embedded. That's something I discovered a long time after I've used this kind of idea. And what you can do, there are all kinds of games you can do with this. You say, okay, this one goes here. No. Does this one go here? No. Okay, this one goes here. And then you can play these kinds of games with the learners, working on screen, seeing, finding the home shape for the words, or even finding other words which fit that word shape. Or having a collection of words, make a collection of words in a bubble that have that shape. All you're doing is exciting a part of the brain that doesn't traditionally get excited in a typical language lesson. And learners can have fun actually making their own shapes, or drawing their own shapes, rubbing out the word, and then just having shapes and seeing what kind, how well they can remember what word goes into that shape. Sound root, mouth words, tongue words, throat words. Now, online, this might be what I would do with learners with the shape of the mouth and the production of words. Well, tongue words, it's like this is the roof of the mouth, that's the tongue, tongue word, throat word, tongue word, and then if the tongue is either at the mouth, outside the mouth, or behind the teeth, you can use your hands to mimic the shape of the mouth. for the pronunciation of the words. Again, something like this is very useful for Arabic speakers because the operation of the mouth for Arabic speakers with Arabic is very important. With mouth words, like where the mouth, the lips are where the root of the word is, like mum, tongue words, just off the top of my head, some word like long or love, the tongue starts at the top of the mouth. Throat words, think, and again, that's utilizing a part of the brain which doesn't normally get utilized in a learning situation. What I've got here, I add little notions of these are learner types, but learners which I've come across and how to work with these kinds of learners. This is just a young learner who cannot sit still, quite restless, always fidgeting and moving around, constantly wandering up and down around the room. How to work with this person. And what I've got here, using 5 senses for songs, rhymes, chants, jazz, chants, poems. And this is, again, it's utilizing the brain in a way that's not normally utilized. And this is a kind of jazz chant, but not a typical jazz chant. Again, this is for a young learner. And I simply use this because this is what I've been using. And how it works is like this. These lines here mark a pause. Now, I don't know if this is something, you've got to tell me, shout out if this is something you're familiar with. Oh, Mr. Sun, Mr. Golden Sun. Yes, with pausing. So it's, oh, Mr. Sun, Mr. Golden Sun. So the time between the beats of each section is the same. Is that something that people here are familiar with? I'm seeing some, no. Yes, no. I can't see your faces at the same time, but okay, all right. Okay, the technical word is tone unit, but it's a great way. It's actually where where emotions are embedded. So it's, oh, Mr. Sun, Mr. Golden Sun. Won't you please shine down on me? So it's, won't you please shine down on me? So you get the rhythm. That's English. English is stress timed, which is a stress time language. It's a rhyming language, the same with Arabic. So Arabic speakers will be very, very familiar with this way of, I'm going to give you another technical word, chunking. Chunking, you might have heard of chunking, but chunking is the word that's used for dividing an utterance into little tone units, and then each section has one stress, and the time between the stresses in each unit is the same. Lines 4 and 5 are a little bit strange. This is why it's not a proper jazz chant. Jazz chant, it's the same rhythm going all the way through. This is different here, which bothered me a bit, but okay. So it's, you are hiding behind a tree. So the rhythm is completely different. You're hiding behind a tree. These little children are asking you. And then it comes back to the initial rhythm. Please come out so we can play with you. Yes. Please, oh, no, sorry, I missed that one. Please come out so we can play with you. So you notice, I'll say it again so it's clear. Please come out so we can play with you. So you notice how some words are squeezed together. And that is the stress rhythm in English. And it's great fun. And the other thing is it's very real. It's the way a stress time language is spoken. So that's jazz chanting, and that's working with language in a way that engages the emotions. Okay. All right. Now, nurture emotional connections with materials by relating the materials to the learner's own lives. Calligraphy. I've mentioned calligraphy before. This is my name in Latin, and this is my name in Arabic. This is something that I think can be very, very helpful. Some teachers complain, Sami, this has got nothing to learning with English. They said, but it's got everything to engaging with the learner's own way of learning, with the kind of learning that they are familiar with. You could even get learners to teach you, or a learner to, and this is specifically with Arabic speakers, to write your name phonetically in Arabic, and then teach you to write it neatly. That's the kind of emotional engagement which I've used. That's something that I've used, especially when I'm in China. That students would teach me, or learners would teach me, how to write my name in Chinese calligraphy, Chinese pictographs, or Chinese characters, and they get to know you as a learner. The roles get reversed, and that can also help you as a teacher. No, I'll put it the wrong way around. It helps the learner to come out and share with you what their concerns are. I've got here, learners share a song or poem or chant or prayer. And in their own language, but then you can build on translating how it would be naturally in English. And I would do this. I haven't, have I done this with Arabic speakers? I have. Yes, I have done, yes. That was actually in Oman, where we worked with a song, an Omani song, and the learners gave a very rough translation, and then I worked on it, and then we worked it together, and we sang it in English as well as in Arabic. Okay. There's the Arabic alphabet for you if you're at all interested to find out how you can phonetically write your name in Arabic. But using Arabic, continuing to use Arabic, what to do, how to use that with English. This is nun and fa, ba, nun and ba. So you just find words, collect words which begin with that letter, with that sound. And I've got here another example of this young learner looks bored and angry at the same time, says nothing, sometimes just sits and stares at the teacher. I've put the, as I said, I put these in case these may be the kinds of learners that you've encountered. You've encountered learners like this. Sometimes a learner might feel bored or angry because they don't see any point, don't want to go through the trauma of practicing and learning this foreign language related to their own language. That I find helps. There's seen and sheen. So just collect words that start with that sound. And some, I mean, these are words which I just picked at random. But then I thought, hang on a second, let's think of word groups which are related to their, I think, food and drink of Arabic diet: fig, tea, dough, and rice. So you've got ta with tea, fa, fig, da for dough, ra for rice. And then finding more words that begin with that sound connected with food and drink, but from the learner's own culture. What's happened there? Nothing's happened there. Okay. By using open-ended problems, what exactly is an open-ended problem? I've got here Flora and her 8 framed photos. Now I mention that because Flora is one of my students, Chinese students that I'm teaching online. And it's inside, and her, when I see her, she's in her room or the living room. And I saw behind her 8 framed photos on the wall. And that is, to my mind, what an open-ended problem is. I said, okay, Flora, tell me about those photos. So she went up, she stood on the settee and brought them down and told me about them. So if you're working online, I think this is what I try to do. I try to see the environment where the learner is situated, and I say, oh, this is interesting. What's that? Tell me about that. What's on your desk? Or tell me about the room where you are. I can hear something from off. Who is that? And that is how I define by an open-ended problem. Okay, I'll put here this young, oh yes. This young learner is always cheerful and smiling, always repeating out loud what you say, always puts hand up, not interested so much, working with others, always wanting your attention. And for this, sometimes for a learner like this, you need to give them the space. Just for a few moments, This goes back to the question of how are you? And I'll just put the Arabic there, again, just to create some background and affinity and empathy. And by having the Arabic there, some of the learners may actually speak it and say it. And it's good for the teacher to be familiar with just some of these basic Arabic expressions. It's useful. But, as I said much earlier, it's a question that's often asked as an empty question. But here's an idea of how you can use it a little bit more interactively and a little bit more interestingly. These are flashcards. And one side of the flashcard is the word, the answer to how I find. And the other side is the stress. It's got one syllable, so it's just one stress. And the intonation is down, fine. But there are many other responses to this question. And you can have great fun with different ways of replying to this question. And I'm sure you can imagine how different ways of using this idea. So you've got the word stress, and then you've got the intonation pattern. You can show the word again. This is when I use it face to face. You show the word, and then on the card, and you flip the card over. So all you can see is the intonation pattern and the word stress. Then, perhaps before you get to the intonation and the stress, they can put it on a single cline in order. But the most important thing with this is if they say, how are you? If they say, terrific. Tell me about it. Tell me. Why? So it becomes a follow-up. This is a very, very simple pattern using intonation and word stress. And I'm sure you as experienced teachers, you can see, you can develop this for other kinds of interactions or little dialogues. And this here, again, a later part of that dialogue from how are you? It's a different way of highlighting the word. So you've got thank you on one side of the card and the face on the other side. I think when you get to use these, and I'm thinking that in online situation, it's a problem, but gradually, eventually, when you get back to face, with these kinds of cards, give them over to the learners. You don't hold them onto them yourself. Let the learners teach each other and direct each other with these little dialogues with these cards. And then the role of the teacher changes. Teacher role, how a teacher's role changes, and in the course of a lesson like this, is something which we can't look at, or I can't look at it today. That needs a whole session in itself. But with online, I'm really stuck. I don't know how you would use these online. Because you can't hide them, unless of course, hang on a second. No. Oh no, then I have to put one above the other. Okay. Okay, well, all right. You can do it like this. All right. Oh, so you got it either way. So Sami was being very silly. It's very easy. You can just hide them like this. Hello, there you go. Yes. So you do have the possibility of playing with them, but the problem is, of course, the teachers holding all of this. how to pass the baton over to the learners. Okay, with this, what's next? Okay, that's something else. I'm going to stop at this moment. Any questions?
There's a question in the chat.
I've been talking on and on and on and on. Nobody's interrupted me.
There's a question in the chat, Sami. Have you seen it?
Oh, there are 3 questions. The face-to-face observation that you have made has never occurred to me, Sami. Karen, what do you mean by that, Karen, the face-to-face observation?
That was the comment at the very start about how in this, online learning situation, we're face-to-face with the learners throughout the whole interaction compared with when, we might have been in a classroom setting. And it was a sort of different dynamic. That had just never ever occurred to me that was the case. So thank you for pointing that out.
That's all right. Okay, thank you. Lily and Sophie. Where are you, Lily and Sophie? Hello, hi. We're not, don't worry.
Hello.
That sounds like a clue for a cryptic crossword. Okay. Where are you?
Very poor short-term memory, so we can't actually remember what that comment was in reference to, but some of the other participants might remember.
It was when Sami was talking about us, being uninterested in what he was saying.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. We
all right, okay.
Assure you, Sami.
All right, okay, no worries. Quasimodo. Who is Quasimodo? I want to see your picture now. Where are you? Quasimodo?
That's my son's name. My name is Pizza, but my son's artistic name was left in my picture. So I'm
what a wonderful artistic name. Quasimodo was one of the most underrated people of novelty, but I can't see a picture of you. Where are you?
She is there. She is there. Maybe you need to just.
Okay. All right. So, does the use of 2 languages, the learner's mother tongue and the new one, help? Yes. Are you asking that because you're not sure? You're questioning whether it is helpful.
I find it helpful. Some people say that you shouldn't use the second language. I am bilingual myself, and I learned both languages simultaneously. And I don't think they get mixed up. But I just wanted your opinion, because I think they need it sometimes. They need to know it in their own mother tongue. And
yes,
I think.
Yes, you make a very valid point there. It's because this is the power of the linguist that comes through here. And I've had constant battles with linguists. Linguists insist that we learn cognitively. And I've almost gone to battle with these people. In other words, the emotional content, the emotional aspect of learning is somewhat sidelined. Using 2 languages is 2 expressions. Look at us. I'm using my hands.
Yes.
I'm using my face. I'm using my language. That's 3 languages.
Yes.
Then there's the color of my voice. That's the 4th language. Then there's the clothes I'm wearing. The number of languages we're using to communicate is multifold. That doesn't bother us. Our beautiful minds, thank you, nature, our minds make sense of it. And in point of fact, the more input there is, the richer the mind is something else. I don't want to go into that, but the richer the brain, the richer the soul. And this is what I have discovered through my teaching, that the more variety, the more, oh, here's a very woke word, diversity, the more diversity you bring into the class, the better. And why limit it just to 2 languages? The thing is, when we talk about the learner's mother tongue, we also need to be a bit careful, because there are usually 2 mother tongues. There's the standard, like Standard Arabic. Then there's the local colloquial Arabic from the learner's village or town. So there are different kinds of languages going on. And I think it's extremely helpful. And it shows, this is something else which the linguists will never agree to. It shows that the teacher is willing to be a learner. When the learners see that the teacher is willing to be a learner, then it makes the learner respect the teacher so much more. If the teacher is behaving like, well, I don't want to use the word, but I'm reading this book by Robert Harris called Dictator. If a teacher is beginning to be a little bit like a dictator, the learner emotionally switches off.
Yeah.
You might get the learner's attention. The learner's looking at you with the face, but inside, I hate you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here. I want to be somewhere else. God, you're so ugly. Ugh. So what's the point of trying to create a false a false kind of composition where it's completely a complete hypocrisy? If they think you're ugly, let them tell you, Sami, you're really ugly today. I said, yes, I know. It's just I didn't have a shower today. Sorry. Maybe I smell. The thing is, that emotional content brings the 2 of you together.
Yes, interaction.
Yeah.
Because I have some students who speak French. They're from Africa.
Yeah.
I speak French, but it's rusty. So I often ask them, how do you say this in French? Because this is the Greek word, for example, or, and they like that very much, because, you're asking them also to participate and help.
Yes. And then what happens, they're so willing to do the impossible. You see, maybe you want to introduce them to an aspect of the language which is a little bit ugh, and ugh. We've got to do it. We have no choice. But when you set up the kind of emotional foundation of trust and comfort, they will do anything for you.
Yes. Thank you.
But somebody else, please. I mean, Olivia said, Sami, don't ask open questions. Who would like to say, mention the name, because then you encourage a response. I'm just going through the names here. So
free to ask open questions as well. That was more.
Okay. Or if anybody wants to use to put the chat. Wait a second. I'm looking at people's. Okay, I'm looking at people. I'm going to practice a little bit what I preach here. I can see 2 ladies in a room, and behind on the wall, there's something hanging like this. Are those Christmas or New Year decorations? What is that?
They're photographs of previous volunteers.
Ah, wow. Okay. Now, of course, what I would do if this was a lesson, say, well, show me your favorite one. Okay, but not that, but that would be that's lovely. You see, that's wonderful. Wow. How many photographs have you got up there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Oh, here
7,
we go.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19.
Okay, and then I would say, okay, I choose number 7. Show me number 7. So that's how it goes. It's okay. That would be an example, and that's how it go about that. Okay.
Sorry.
Have I heard from Flavia? Flavia,
Hi.
hi. Do you have a question for Sami?
No, all clear. It was really interesting. Thank you.
All clear? Are you sure?
Yes.
Really? Wow. I'm not sure if it was Stavrula.
Oh, Greek.
Stavrula, have you already asked me a question? No.
Hello. No, I have not.
Okay, so do you have a question for Sami?
I'm actually a quite new teacher, so I'm listening all this, and it is very interesting. For the time being, I do not have an answer. Also, I could say something.
Yes.
We have talked before about translanguaging and the use of languages during the lesson.
Yeah.
My first classroom has this characteristic. We do not have, now we have managed to communicate, but at first we didn't have a common language. I speak Greek, English, and French. They speak very little. They do not speak English, and they speak their own native languages.
Right.
Arabic, Farsi, you know.
Me too.
So, do you have any advice in such cases how to start communication with this classroom?
Well, the first thing I would say is that there is only one kind of language which is not in common. You have a lot of other ways that you express yourselves. You can spend the first 50 minutes without speaking a word, purely through gesture. Now, being a new teacher or a newish teacher, what you would need to do is to prepare a repertoire of gestures using your hands and your face, and with possible meanings of them in your own language. And then what you would simply do, and this is just an idea that's off the top of my head now, you would teach, you would build up a kind of gestural dance with these gestures, just so that everybody, eventually people will go quiet and they will just copy the gestures. Or they would actually repeat the equivalent, the meaning equivalent in their own language. And when that happens, you speak the equivalent meaning in your own language. But it is the common language is a gesture. Now, there's a complication here, because maybe a gesture that means something in your language might mean something different in their language. That's okay. That's something that you can learn. The other thing that you can do is to actually use, again, it starts with a bit of silence. I want to move this chat box out of the way. but to use flashcards like these, where the meaning is given graphically. Jazz chants are very, very useful, especially with very basic dialogues, very, very basic dialogues. And what you're doing is that you're learning the song of the chant, the song of the dialogue. So the learners don't see it as a language they're learning, they're seeing it as a song that they're learning.
Okay.
I had a suggestion in the chat box.
Ah.
Have a look at it.
Ah, wonderful. Also learn a little Farsi. Yes, but how's your Farsi? My Farsi is, I don't have Farsi at all.
It's poor, but
Okay.
they like it when I try to, for example, tell them a verb, which is not very visual, for example, and I say it in their language, and they are very happy to see that I'm also making an effort in their language. But I show them very many pictures through the lesson, very many pictures.
All right.
This was my choice too. Images and pictures. Otherwise, we wouldn't manage to communicate. But I really wanted to hear your opinion over this subject. Thank you very much.
Hang on a second. I'm going for. Don't worry about the rods. I'm looking for the pictures because I brought up some pictures here.
There, yes.
Yes, and I chose these pictures about children who look after themselves and take care of themselves by doing what they're doing. And then this one.
Yes.
These pictures were all from a Montessori school in Colombia where I was doing some teacher training.
Oh, how cute.
The wonderful possibility, the wonderful thing about pictures, as you rightly suggested, sir, is that anything is possible from a picture because it is completely open.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're in the same situation as Stavroula, because she also has Farsi and other speakers. So, yes, sometimes it's distressing when you speak several languages not to be able to speak one that you need, So, we make a little effort to learn some words and, to please the students.
Yes. The kind of language, the common language that you would use between each other, let's say if it's English, you would keep it on a completely emotional level, not on a transactional level, but an emotional level. And essentially, one basic dialogue is the how are you?
Yes.
How is he? How is she in the picture? And then let it build up.
Yes.
Little by little.
Yes.
Yes, these children spent an hour doing their paintings, and then they had a studio crit with the teacher, Alejandro, getting some feedback. Again, the language possibilities here are enormous.
Do we have any final questions and comments? I'm just
yes, please, because we Karen, I should write to Karen. She's suddenly gone. Yes.
Yeah, I think a few people have had to go because it's getting towards the end of the hour.
Right. Okay.
But if anyone has any last comments or burning questions they want to ask, then go for it.
Now, I was just going to add Sami's lecture that some of the students have no emotions. They seem to have no emotions, their face, their expressions. And when we start, for example, in the intonation of a word, or make it happy or make it sad, they seem to start to open themselves a little bit, I noticed, because we have to encourage them. They have, they're all flat. Some of them are very flat. They have you can't even hear a question mark or an exclamation. So I think the emotions are very important.
And that's where you as a teacher is very important. You are very important to model that emotional aspect.
Yes.
Very important for that, yes. Yeah. Yes, my plan is to have a follow-up, and I've noticed that there are several aspects of this talk which I haven't looked at yet, and you've also given me some ideas for a follow-up talk to look at a little bit more of the mechanics of what we can do to encourage the emotional content of a lesson. And I was just wondering if that's something that you'd like to follow up with me.
Yes.
It's up. Olivia, you're planning. You. Sometimes I feel uncomfortable to clarify he and she, keeping in mind that gender is something personal to categorize. Any tips on that? Yes.
Show them a man and a woman.
One thing that comes straight to mind for that, I do understand what you mean, Yo-Yo, and I completely empathize with your concern. Just use a picture, maybe where it's quite clear that you look at Alejandro, the teacher. Well, instead of he and she, you call it this student or this teacher or the teacher or this student here, or this learner here. Another thing that's used in English, instead of he and she, sometimes they say, we use they. Sometimes, Yo-Yo, but it's not very suitable. But that's a good question for me to follow up on, because that needs some work on. I've never felt uncomfortable with that, because to me, gender is only a description, a little bit like we wear, which hand we used to write with, the texture of our hair. All these are differences which are sort of descriptive and cultural. So I personally don't feel that they are loaded, but it can be loaded for learners, but it's very important that the teacher sees it as being not a description which has hidden agendas, as it were. Okay. Olivia, you're looking at me and Sami, it's time to wrap up, I believe.
I think, yeah, it might be for everyone. I feel like we've had a good chat. And then, yeah, I mean, if Sami's going to do a follow-up session, then by all means, anyone is welcome.
On Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday at the same time.
Okay.
I'll send out the link. And then, yeah, do join if you would like. That would be nice to see you all. And thanks everyone for coming. And thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thoughts and
your patience.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
It's good that there's still lockdown because Thursday is a big feast in Greece.
Oh, yeah.
We would probably have parties and everything. But now during lockdown, it's a normal day.
Oh, yeah. I
Right.
forgot about that. Yeah. Oh, well. Are you happy to join still if you have your holiday?
Yes, it's,
Okay.
lockdown holiday.